Today, we're continuing with our series, Blessed, Jesus' words for people who are sick and tired of being sick and tired. We've been looking at what are called the Beatitudes from one account of Jesus' life, the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus has a series of phrases where he says, blessed are the. We've looked at blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled until they are satisfied. And today we're talking about blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. So I want to start out with, anybody out there like cold case shows? I know there's some people out there who love that. By the way, if you feel so moved, share this live stream on your own Facebook page, not because our goal is to have a massive amount of people, but we believe that this community is worth it. It's good for people. And so if you feel so moved to share this on your Facebook, by all means, do so. Cold case files. I want to tell you about a plot for murder. Yes. In a town where fathers played favorites, and it created a mess of things. You would have thought that there was this generation previously where a father played a favorite with a son, and the mother had a favorite and wove some scheme to get a certain son blessed as the favorite. Years passed in that town. The brothers were divided, totally divided for years. And the brother whose mother schemed to help him get the favor, some of you are already tracking with me, these brothers were separated, man, for years. And the brother who was the favorite was preparing for the day he'd meet that brother again. And they finally encountered each other. The brother who was the favorite was prepared to receive the other brother's wrath. And the other brother embraces him, shows him love and mercy. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. We're going to talk more. What does merciful mean? Merciless. What's the opposite? You would have thought that would have stopped then, but it did not. That man, Jacob, in that town, in that time, played favorites with his sons too. And he had a favorite named Joseph. He got him a nice coat. Jacob did for Joseph. Jacob, whose name became Israel, got him a nice coat. Joseph was a visionary. He had some skill as a visionary, as a dreamer. And at that time in his life, he had a bit of an ego too. And he would be happy to tell his brothers about these dreams that he had of kind of like ruling them. So one day, here's the plot for murder. Joseph, having a good day, wants to go find his brothers where they're shepherding some sheep. And as he's coming out, a couple of the brothers, who are the tribes of Israel, they are the patriarchs of the tribes of Israel, they look at this brother Joseph come out and they say, man, let's just kill this guy. Like, not joking, like, man, I'm so angry with Joseph, I could kill him. Like, no, seriously, like cold case files, like they're plotting to kill their brother and throw him into a pit. Yeah. It's crazy. But instead, there's one brother whose name is Reuben, who steps in and says, imagine him eating his breakfast or lunch, whatever he's doing, and he hears his brothers plotting to murder their brother, and he goes, what? And he says, no, wait. He has a scheme himself, a merciful act. He says, no, let's just throw him down in the pit. You know, we don't have to kill him. We'll just throw him down there. We'll just throw him down into a pit. You don't got to kill him. Because Reuben's idea is that he's going to come back later and rescue his brother. But they throw him down into the pit, and the brothers decide that, hey, yeah, you know what? Maybe we don't need to murder him. But there was a passing group. There was like a band of travelers going by, merchants maybe. And they say, you know, let's sell our brother. Can you imagine? They've relented. We're not going to kill our brother, but let's sell him into slavery. So right here at the beginning of the Bible, I know one of our groups has been reading Genesis. A question is this: will the lack of mercy in one generation become a lack of mercy in the next? Will the lack of mercy in one relative become the lack of mercy in another? Joseph gets sold into slavery. Reuben comes back to find that he's not in the pit. He's mortified. We'll pick up that story later. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. I thought I'd just ask you now for a minute. I'm going to kind of define that for a minute. What I'm going to kind of define for you what merciful means to me, what merciless, the opposite, means. And then I want to turn it over to you. Because as I said, I'm not always going to tell you what these statements mean, but I want to help you to sink your teeth into them. So I'm going to ask you in a minute, what's an instance of merciful that you yourself have experienced or seen? So first I'm going to say this. So this isn't a perfectly good definition, but when I think of merciful, it's something that costs you a lot, especially spiritually or emotionally. You can do something merciless that costs you a lot of money, but nothing in terms of personal sacrifice, nothing in terms of emotion, nothing in terms of status. When you do something truly merciful, it costs you a lot initially. And it's gain to a neighbor in terms of healing, freedom, peace, etc. And it may or may not become a sort of gain to you in the end. So it costs you a lot initially. Think about Reuben. So think about Reuben for a minute. Reuben, by the way, who eventually got cursed by his father in the end because he did some bad things. The Bible is a story of how wandering, wayward people can still be merciful because God is merciful. Reuben does something amongst his brothers that probably cost him a lot emotionally, spiritually, relationally, to try to gain something for his beloved neighbor, his brother Joseph. And it didn't gain him something in the end. So I thought I'd ask you, let's stop in the comments. Can you think of a time when somebody has done that for you, when somebody has been merciful to you? Somebody's done something for you that it cost them, looking back, it probably cost them something. It cost them time. It was a personal sacrifice in terms of maybe status, emotion, spiritual, whatever. It cost them quite a bit. And it gave you some sort of healing, freedom, peace. So I'll wait there for a minute. And I'm going to look down to Katie and Mandy. If either of you all have an example, you can raise your hand and I'll bring you up into the live screen. But don't be pressured. I'll just wait for a minute to see if you can think, has anyone done something merciful that really, you look back and you go, man, that was not easy for them to do that, and it helped me gain a lot. Josh, you got anything?
I'm trying to remember just one.
Josh,
Happened several times.
Josh just said, I'm trying to remember one. If you really dig into it, did I see a hand from Mandy or Katie? No. Ooh, Katie's got one. All right, Katie. Come on in, Katie. What do you got?
So I work for Kickit, and we sometimes have a hard time finding a safe and stable place to house individuals because hotels don't let us rent to individuals who are 18, who are the age of 18, they need to be 21. So anyways, we had a young woman come to us who was homeless. We could not put her in a hotel. She didn't have any income, so we couldn't find an apartment. And a community member reached out to us and housed her for 3 months, let her move into her home, fed, gave her a bedroom, and let her live with them until we were able to get her a job and find a place where she could live. So it was amazing.
Let's see. Cost you a lot? Check. Is gain to a neighbor in terms of healing, freedom, peace, etc.? Check. May or may not become a sort of gain to you in the end. We don't know, but great example. Katie's going to be telling us more about Kick It shortly. Thank you, Katie. Dave Seaver says, I haven't read this yet, but yeah, check that out. Christy brought up a great example there. If you think of it like Josh says, there's probably not just one of these, but probably many of them, where somebody did something on your behalf that cost them a lot, not just in money, but in personal freedom and in their emotions and their spiritual sort of bank account. And it was huge gain to you. I think of something my wife did for me a long time ago. When I'd really messed up, and instead of cursing me, she forgave me. And it really taught me what forgiveness was about. It was a true act of mercy. Acts of mercy truly change the world. I believe that Jesus came to start a mercy movement, which sounds like a nice turn of phrase, but I truly believe that. Jason shares this. My wife was adopted at birth. I think of the mercy sacrifice that her birth mother made often. Let those who have ears hear. The prophets in the Old Testament. So if you want the Old Testament in about 20 seconds, you got a section about how God wants nothing more but to have a relationship with human beings. Then you got human beings saying, you know what, we kind of want to do our own thing and we want power for ourselves, and everything goes wrong. And then the prophets come along at the end of the Old Testament and say, we got to turn back to God. And one of the things they say, the ways we got to turn back to God is we can't just be people who do empty religious stuff. We got to be people who do concrete acts of mercy alongside our neighbors, especially disadvantaged ones, if we are to reflect the image of God, who is the God of mercy. Jesus comes to bring that into flesh and to show us what mercy looks like. Now I'm going to turn the other one to you. It's the one we probably just want to move along. Just think about the mercy. Just feel good. But our world is full of this. We live in a merciless world. A world that is not as it should be. We might hear what Joseph's brothers did because they're upset that he's the favorite one. Like, God, I'd never do such a thing. I'd never plot a murder. Oh. Jesus says, you've heard it said, you shall not murder. But I tell you, if you've harbored anger in your heart, you've committed murder in your heart. We're plotting murder all the time, are we not? Can you think of something merciless that's happened to you or that you've done, where it cost you nothing? In a tough moment, or when you were challenged, maybe when you were hurt, you responded in a way that really cost you nothing. Maybe it cost you money. Like I said, a lot of merciless deeds that happen in the world cost financially, but cost nothing spiritually, emotionally. It's nothing of personal sacrifice. It costs you nothing, maybe even gains you something. But it's very costly in terms of harm, abuse, freedom, etc. for a neighbor. And it eventually costs you and everyone around you a lot. I'd understand if you don't want to share that, how you've done that, how it's happened to you. We live in a world where mercilessness multiplies. For generations, merciless acts. We're waging war with mercilessness that happened generations ago. Generational trauma just keeps showing up. And the question the Bible often begs is, who will break the cycle? Is there any merciful one among us? Esau tries, man. I told you that story. Esau, he embraces his brother Jacob after Esau has been done a raw deal, a merciless thing by his mother. A pretty merciless thing by his father. His father's like, I don't got enough blessing to bless everybody equally. What? But that's the world they lived in. Esau tried to interrupt it, man. He did. Jacob went on playing favorites with his boys. It's like, who will break the cycle? Reuben tries. He's like, no, don't do this. They throw him into a pit anyways. Who will break this cycle? Well, God is a God of mercy. And sometimes in the Bible, we got to listen for the places where God's mercy is reflected in flawed human beings. And we got to try and go do likewise. So listen to this. Let's pick up this plot for murder situation. So guess what happens? Remember when I said a merciless act ends up costing you a lot in the end? I'm not saying what goes around comes around. Look, that's not how this world always works. But in this story, the plot for murder one, it ends up costing Joseph's brothers a lot. You know why? They sold the one great visionary among them down the river, and they later needed it. Why? Because famine came to the land. And they needed a visionary. And guess what? He was gone. And in Egypt, he had been humbled. And you know what he started doing? People started to realize this guy is a dreamer. Like, he can interpret dreams. And in that time, like, everybody was always worried. Like, I had a dream last night. I need someone to tell me what it means for my life. Like, every day, it's like, I had a dream last night. Give me the interpreters. If you were a king, it'd be like, give me the whole staff. I need them out here right now. Give me the wise men, the sorcerers, the magicians. Get everybody out here because I need to know what my dream means. They figured out Joseph could interpret dreams. And he ended up interpreting the Pharaoh's dreams. And the Pharaoh complimented him, but Joseph's been humbled now, and he says, I'll tell you what, all wisdom, all these interpretations belong to God, not me. And he gets promoted. He's the number 2 man in all of Egypt. In all of Egypt. And guess where Joseph's brothers travel to get help? Egypt. Having no clue who they're about to encounter. And the question comes up, like, who will break the cycle of mercilessness? Joseph has it completely within his power. Most of us would look at him and say, dude, you could totally crush your brothers and nobody blame you for it. And it looks like at first like he's going to. They don't know who he is. I'll let you read it, the in-between details. He kind of makes the brothers give him the youngest brother, Benjamin, and the brothers start freaking out because they know Benjamin's one of the favorites. He says, I'll keep Benjamin. You go back home and get the whole family and bring them here. And they're like, oh my gosh, what have we got ourselves into? They have no idea that Joseph's heart is set on mercy, on being a reflection of God's heart in a merciless world. And so now I'll read you eventually what Joseph says to his brothers in a moment of incredible mercy. It costs him a lot. If you're in Joseph's shoes, do you think you'd just be over the fact that your brothers sold you into slavery? Such that you were isolated from your family for your entire life? You think you'd just be like, oh, I'm healed, I'm good. But no, what he does is this. All the family comes back, and in Genesis 45, Joseph could no longer control himself in front of all his attendants, so he declared, "Everyone leave now." So no one stayed with him when he revealed his identity to his brothers. He wept so loudly that the Egyptians and Pharaoh's household heard him. Joseph said to his brothers, "I'm Joseph. Is my father really still alive?" His brothers couldn't respond because they were terrified before him. They're expecting the mercilessness to come down on their heads. Joseph said to his brothers, "Come closer to me." And they moved closer. He said, "I'm your brother Joseph, the one you sold to Egypt." It's coming. You ready for it, Josh? He's about to put them in a pit. Now he says to them, "Don't be upset. Don't be angry with yourselves that you sold me here." What? I imagine they're looking down at the ground, and then they realize, because they're facing the number 2 in Egypt right now. They're down. They're looking up. What did he just say? "Now don't be upset, don't be angry with yourselves that you sold me here. Actually, God sent me before you to save lives. We've already had 2 years of famine in the land, and there are 5 years left without planting or harvesting. God sent me before you to make sure you'd survive." What? "And to rescue your lives in this amazing way. You didn't send me here. It was God who made me a father to Pharaoh, master of his entire household, and ruler of the whole land. Hurry, go back to your father. Tell him this is what your son Joseph says. God has made me master of all Egypt. Come down to me. Don't delay. You may live in the land of Goshen, so you will be near me, your children, your grandchildren, your flocks, your herds, and everyone with you. I will support you there, so you, your household, and everyone with you won't starve, since the famine will last 5 years. You and my brother Benjamin have seen with your own eyes that I'm speaking to you. Tell my father about my power in Egypt and about everything you've seen. Hurry and bring my father down here." He threw his arms around his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his shoulder. He kissed all of his brothers and wept, embracing him. Looks a lot like Esau. After that, his brothers were finally able to talk to him. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Let me take you back to the prayer. Let us remember Jesus, who is mighty indeed, healing the sick and the disordered, using for others the powers he would not invoke for himself. If you're wondering who will break the cycle to this merciless world in which we live, there are characters throughout the Old Testament who show the heart of God and the will to break the cycle, not because of something they have in themselves, but by Joseph's own account, but because of something God gave them. We all have it. And ultimately, if you're wondering if anyone will break the cycle, his name is Jesus. The one who said, "Blessed are the merciful," became the epitome of mercy by dying on a cross, not to change God's mind about human beings. We've been telling that story wrongly in the church. Like all of a sudden, Jesus is like, God, stop hating your people. Don't be merciless. Love your people. No, Jesus is God in the flesh. Jesus is trying to change our minds about who God is. And God is a God of mercy. And his love letter to us is on the cross, saying that however far you've wandered, whatever mercilessness you've multiplied, I still love you. Now will you change your heart and life? Will you join me in breaking the cycle of a merciless world? Will you be a person who multiplies with me mercy and not mercilessness? Will you do costly things for the sake of your neighbor, for the sake of healing, freedom, peace? We're getting some noise from the peanut gallery back here. Blessed are the merciful on the cross. Jesus says, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. You think he was happy as he said that? No, but he was showing us the heart of God in hopes that it would become our heart. Well, if we're going to be talking about mercy, we better keep hearing about Kick It, right? So I'm going to bring Katie back onto the screen. Katie, welcome back. So first, if you could, so this is Katie Sparks, Executive Director of Kick It. If we're talking about the merciful, we better be talking about Kick It because they're doing some great things. Really quick, Katie, can you just start off with, in a nutshell, what is Kick It? Why Kick It?
So if you haven't heard of Kick It, we work with the homeless youth or those youth who are at risk of being homeless. So our demographics is 16 to 26, so young adults who find themselves without a stable place to stay. So that's who we are. What we do, I still consider myself somewhat new. I joined Kick It March 1st of 2020. So embraced a pandemic and starting from the very beginning, it's been a whirlwind. But I very passionately believe that Kick It, while we want to end homelessness for youth, I don't want a Band-Aid fix. So I was sort of given ground zero when I came on board by my board of directors to make Kick It what we needed to be. And so I very passionately believe that Kick It is, we developed a youth development program. So our focus is to not only, find safe and stable housing for these individuals, but to work alongside of them, developing the skills and the tools that they need to change the trajectory of their life and make sustainable life change. So our services all kind of stem from that heart.
It sounds like a mission statement that I've heard. It goes something like, we exist to make a lasting impact by building relationships with all kinds of neighbors, helping them experience freedom from their burdens so our community is transformed for generations to come. Of course, that's our church's mission. That's why we partner with people like Kick It, like Katie. When we were talking on Thursday, Katie, you said, of course, we want to provide an immediate need for somebody. Mm-hmm. But you said that we want to move beyond that too. And that's where that youth development program comes in.
So when we have, our first and foremost is we try to follow housing first model as much as possible. That, has its own set of challenges because we don't have a homeless shelter or permanent supportive housing or even transitional housing in Johnson County. So that leaves us to use hotels. So our number one priority is, to find a place to keep an individual housed and safe while we work on, finding a job, learning how to budget, addressing any mental health issues, but connecting them to resources and truly teaching them skills that we so often take for granted. You talked a little bit in the Sunday conversation about generational trauma, and so many of our young adults that come to us are products of generational trauma. And so it's a lot to change those and break that cycle. And they don't know what they don't know. Asking an individual to apply for Medicaid, like sometimes they just don't even know where to begin. So it's really us coming alongside of them. As Kick It is not a faith-based organization, but I am a believer and I'm a Christian. And so I am very passionate and believe that our impact is greater when all parts of the kingdom come together to love and support these individuals without judgment. And I feel like that's what we're called to do as Christians, but also as humans. And so really just how do we help them to show mercy, as you said?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. Sometimes we might think of mercy as just like an act of forgiveness, but clearly the prophets in the Old Testament, Jesus himself understood acts of mercy is the very work that Kick It's doing. It's an act of compassion. It's an act of justice, making wrong things right. So we love what Kick It is doing. We could not, this is an example of how partnership works. There's no way we could do on our own as a church all the things that Kick It is doing. But by God, we want to support it. We want to do what we can. One thing I wanted to mention that really convicts my heart is that you shared a statistic, Katie, that how a lot of youths end up homeless in Johnson County. Can you say a bit about that?
One of the statistics is that 40% of all youth experiencing homelessness are LGBTQ, mostly because they're kicked out of their homes. They're not welcome once they've, had that conversation. But 80% of homeless agencies don't provide services for those adults and those young adults. And so when I came on board and I read that statistics, as a human and as a Christian, I was like, man, we're all called to love without judgment. And so I very passionately have sort of integrated just LGBTQ philosophies and how to better serve these individuals and to work with them. And I will say that of the youth that we serve, we definitely see at least 40% who are homeless because of LGBTQ.
Thank you, Katie. That's certainly part of our heartbeat as a church. To walk alongside our neighbors who are unjustly treated for no reason. So thank you for the work that you do.